When you hear the name Bloody Mary, what comes to mind? For most, it's a terrifying figure from a ghost story, or perhaps a vague, dark image of a ruthless queen. But who was the woman behind the legend? Mary I of England, the first crowned Queen Regnant in the country's history, is one of the most misunderstood monarchs ever to rule. Her story is far more complex than just a simple tale of tyranny. It's a gripping drama of faith, power, love, and betrayal that fundamentally reshaped England. So, let's peel back the layers of myth and propaganda to uncover the real Mary Tudor. To understand her, we have to go back to her childhood, which was anything but a fairy tale. Born in 1516, Mary was the cherished daughter of King Henry VIII and his first wife, Catherine of Aragon. For years, she was the jewel of the Tudor court, celebrated as a princess and heir to the throne. She was highly educated, fluent in multiple languages, and a gifted musician. The Great Matter, as it was known, threw Mary's world into chaos. Her father, desperate to marry Anne Boleyn, broke away from the Catholic Church, declared his marriage to Catherine void, and stripped Mary of her title as princess. Suddenly, she was declared illegitimate, a bastard, and was separated from her beloved mother, whom she would never see again. Imagine the psychological toll: your own father disowning you, your faith condemned, and your future erased. She lived under constant pressure to renounce her mother and her Catholic faith. Yet, through it all, Mary held firm, a testament to her incredible resilience and unwavering belief. Her teenage years and early adulthood were spent in the shadows. A forgotten figure during the reigns of her father and her younger half-brother, Edward VI. Edward's government pushed England further towards Protestantism, making Mary's position even more precarious. She was isolated, constantly watched, and often feared for her life. Yet her supporters remained loyal, seeing her as the rightful heir and the true defender of the old faith. When Edward died in 1553, a plot was launched to place a Protestant cousin, Lady Jane Grey, on the throne instead of Mary. This was Mary's moment. Instead of fleeing or surrendering, she did something unprecedented. She rallied her supporters in East Anglia and marched towards London. The people of England flocked to her banner. They saw her not as a religious fanatic, but as the legitimate heir who had been wronged for decades. The coup against her collapsed in a matter of days, and she entered London to a hero's welcome. At 37 years old, after a lifetime of struggle, Mary Tudor was finally Queen of England. It was a stunning victory, a true defiance of all expectations. As Queen, Mary's primary goal was clear: to restore England to the Catholic Church. This was not just a political move. It was the core of her identity, the faith that had sustained her through her darkest days. She began by reversing the Protestant reforms of her father and brother. At first, her approach was relatively moderate. But as she faced resistance and perceived threats to her religious mission, her policies hardened. Her marriage to Philip of Spain, son of the Holy Roman Emperor, was a strategic alliance meant to secure the Catholic succession and strengthen England's position in Europe. However, it was deeply unpopular at home. The English feared being drawn into Spanish wars and becoming a mere satellite of the powerful Habsburg Empire. The marriage fueled xenophobia and led to rebellions, which only reinforced Mary's belief that she was surrounded by heretics and traitors. This leads us to the most infamous part of her reign, the Marian persecutions. In an effort to stamp out Protestantism, nearly 300 religious dissenters were burned at the stake for heresy. This is the origin of her notorious nickname, Bloody Mary. It's a horrific legacy, and there's no denying the suffering that occurred. From our modern perspective, it's barbaric, but it's crucial to understand it in the context of the 16th century. Executing heretics was a standard, if brutal, practice across Europe, carried out by both Catholic and Protestant rulers. Her father, Henry VIII, and her half-sister, Elizabeth I, also executed people for their faith, though not on the same scale for heresy. The burnings were public, intended to serve as a terrifying warning to others and, in the mindset of the time, to save the souls of the unrepentant. While the burnings define her reign in popular memory, they weren't her only focus. Mary's government undertook significant administrative and economic reforms. She restructured the navy, laying the groundwork for the fleet that would later defeat the Spanish Armada. Her government reformed the currency after it had been devalued by her father and brother, and they updated the customs system to improve state revenue. These were important, forward-thinking policies that stabilized the kingdom and were continued by her successor, Elizabeth II. But these achievements have been completely overshadowed by the religious persecutions. Perhaps the greatest personal tragedy of Mary's life was her desperate desire for a child. She experienced 2 phantom pregnancies, where she believed herself to be pregnant, exhibiting all the signs, only for no baby to arrive. This was a public and personal humiliation, a devastating blow to a queen whose entire legacy depended on producing a Catholic heir to secure her religious settlement. It also likely pointed to a serious underlying medical condition, possibly uterine or ovarian cancer, which would ultimately contribute to her death. Her final years were marked by disappointment. Her husband Philip spent most of his time abroad. Her phantom pregnancies left her heartbroken, and her religious policies, far from uniting the country, had created a new generation of Protestant martyrs whose stories were immortalized in works like John Foxe's Book of Martyrs. This book became a bestseller and cemented the Bloody Mary image for centuries to come. When she lost Calais, England's last foothold on the continent, to the French, it was a final, crushing blow. She famously said, "When I am dead and opened, you shall find Calais lying in my heart." Mary died in 1558 at the age of 42 during an influenza epidemic. She had reigned for just 5 years. On her deathbed, she was forced to recognize her Protestant half-sister Elizabeth as her heir. With her death, her dream of a Catholic England died too. Elizabeth, I would go on to rule for over 40 years, firmly establishing Protestantism and ushering in a golden age. History, as they say, is written by the victors. The Elizabethan era's propaganda machine worked overtime to paint Mary as a sterile, bitter, and bloody tyrant, a dark chapter to be contrasted with Elizabeth's glorious reign. So, how should we remember Mary Tudor? Was she the monster Bloody Mary? Or was she a principled, courageous woman who was ultimately a tragic figure? The truth, as it so often is, lies somewhere in between. She was a product of her tumultuous times, a woman of deep faith and conviction who had endured unimaginable hardship. Her determination to claim her throne was remarkable. Her policies, while brutal from our standpoint, were driven by a genuine belief that she was saving her people's souls. Her reign, though short, was transformative. She proved that a woman could rule England with authority, setting a precedent for her more famous sister. The story of Mary I is a powerful reminder that history is rarely black and white. It's a complex tapestry woven with threads of personal belief, political necessity, and human tragedy. By looking past the nickname, we find a queen who defied expectations, fought for her crown, and ruled with a fiery passion that, for better or worse, left an indelible mark on her nation. She is not a simple villain, but a fascinating and complex monarch whose story deserves to be told in its entirety. What do you think? After hearing her full story, does your perception of Bloody Mary change? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this journey into the past, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more historical deep dives. See you next time.